Hello. Okay, so if I keep failing to do this video, I'm going to scream. I've tried to do this video about 6 different fucking times now. I'm gonna die. Breathe. Anyway, so, hello. I'm gonna do a video today, hopefully, on Christianity and folk magic and Catholicism and witchcraft. First and foremost, I'm sorry about my hair. I look like fucking Theresa May. I'm getting it cut. It's beyond control, but you know what? It's fine. I don't care. I'm over it. Anyway, so to begin with, I wanted to talk about this idea that a lot of modern not a lot, but a couple of modern traditional witchcraft authors and practitioners have this very negative image of Christianity in general, and Abrahamic religion in general, and I find it a little bit hypocritical in the fact that they claim to practice old forms of folk magic. And obviously in this video I can only really speak from the folk magic practiced in Britain, but Christianity was very prominent and very prevalent in the folk magic of Britain. And with the folk magic of Britain, you see this amazing crossover between Christianity and paganism. You see these older pagan influences, such as the idea of the Rowan beads. Rowan beads and red thread put evil to their steed, and sometimes have a little cross on them. What does that represent? It's very, very similar. In folk magic we'll use these, and also use these as well. You know, can work by two hands. But it's, you know, the rosary beads, the rowan berries and red thread was a symbolism of that rosary bead that the practitioner would hang, and it would protect them. And it's the protective virtues of Rowan, but also with these and a cross, it also represent the Holy Rosary, a sacred tool which Catholics used. I want to start off by saying Catholicism and witchcraft and folk magic was very, very blurred. It was very, very blurred. There were accounts of people being called witches purely because of the fact that they used rosary beads, that they was Catholic. There's an account, it's in Devil's Plantation by Nigel, and it basically says that there was one woman that was called a witch because she had used rosaries, purely because she had used rosaries in her work. When Protestantism you know, was up and coming and everybody had converted to that, there was still these very old Catholic remnants which people wanted to stamp out, and Catholicism was known as the old religion. There were places away from London, away from the south, that were very, very much excluded, and actually have been until a certain point. Places like rural areas, which rules and regulation, you know, up north was considered a very unruly place because there wasn't these rules and regulations, and people were considered wild and unruly because there wasn't so much rules and regulations as much as London, and so much influenced by the monarchy and you know, those in place, and also government to a certain period in time. Depends what period of time you're in, but you know what I mean. There wasn't that influence there as much. So there were people in rural areas that were still practicing Catholics, people that would still pray to the Holy Blessed Virgin Mary, people that would still petition the saints, people that would still go to holy wells and petition certain saints. Holy wells, I mean, if you look at holy wells, they're so prominent within folk magic, and you see this crossover because each holy well in England, in Britain, will have a saint that will rule over it 9 times out of 10. For instance, in Cornwall, a holy well in Cornwall where the famous Clutie charm is done, you say that you tie that charm on the tree over the well, and it's for healing. It's to bring someone healing. You wash yourself in the well waters, and there are accounts of cunning folk and pellers actually saying, go in that water there and wash yourself, you'll be better by the morrow, you know, go and wash yourself in this water and you'll be cured, because this is ruled over by a saint, this water is holy. And of course pagan ancestors years before Christianity would have used that as a place of worship, would have used that as a place of, would have seen that as a sacred place, because water was seen as a very sacred thing. So I think within folk magic there's this huge crossover between pagan elements and Catholicism. Catholicism is very pagan if you think about it. You have different waters that cleanse people, you have different areas where people in nature, where people see saints, where people see Jesus, or you know, you have different the aspect of sacrifice, of a man giving himself up as the slain king, is very, very pagan. People using rosaries to chant is quite a magical belief. It's quite a magical practice if you think about it. And so there was this very blurred line. Holy waters were used, people were washed over, animals were washed over by holy waters. And sometimes what I do, I might use holy water to bless a doll if I'm doing healing, or to bless a candle, or I might use holy water to sprinkle upon my altar. If I'm cleaning my altar and it needs a little bit of just a clean, I just want to put that virtue, that power on there. This water, to me, this water has been charged with someone's will, with someone's energy, with someone's intent. The idea of the witch practicing in an abandoned graveyard, abandoned church, a derelict church, because that place was seen as hollow ground. It wasn't just hollow ground because it was blessed by God or because it was a pagan space before. It's also hollow because the amount of people that have been there and used that as an intersection point, as a place betwixt man and betwixt Godhead, between divinity and between man. It's very, very magical if you think about it. It's incredible. And so there is this awesome and amazing crossover between Christianity and folk magic. In traditional witchcraft, forms of witchcraft, it was known that a witch would go to mass, Catholic mass, and would steal the host, and this then would feed it to their familiar, and it would be seen as the ultimate blasphemy if you stole the host. But if you think about it, this holy man had put his will and intent, and by this blessing, this wafer, this one piece of bread, had become a symbolism of Godhead, had become God. It was a living and a complete embodiment of Jesus Christ himself. And so if you're to take that, you take that power, you take that Godhead, and you can utilise that in your spells and craft. And people were known to feed it to their imps, their puckrels or familiar spirits. People were known to force feed it to a toad. It's very gruesome. Burn it or kill the toad and use it within flying ointment. So there is such a big crossover. Even, you know, there are elements in traditional witchcraft, like the idea of the devil, that idea of this nature spirit that was very fairy-like and very fey, but also had elements and crossovers with the idea of, you know, we call him the devil because it's like the Christian devil, but it's not. It's also something else. There's this whole meeting point. Actually, there was this amazing lecture, and I forgot the name of the woman. I will find it and put the link underneath this video, but she talks of the idea of witchcraft as a practice, older witchcraft as a practice, being not a old pagan practice that's kept in secret, the idea like the Margaret Murray idea of witchcraft, but this idea that it was something in between, that people were still Catholic, but they were practicing something else that had elements and crossovers with it. In the Scottish witch trials, Andrew Mann was reported to see a stag, a white stag, that would come out of the snow, that was known as Christ's Sunday, that was the Queen of Fairies' counterpart. There's this huge Catholic Christian crossover with it. You can totally see it. St Brigid in Gaelic folk magic, she is known to be Mary's midwife, and she's known to be, look, feast day, 1st of February, familiar? You know, Imbolc. But I don't know about you, if you look at this picture, to me, I don't see that as, and a lot of people don't see the difference between the goddess and the saint. Like, there are so many people, like on Imbolc, last Imbolc, I worked with St. Bridget, and I'd done a prayer to St. Bridget. I don't see a difference between the saint and between her. And actually in her shrine in Ireland, there is certain stones that are by her shrine that people go to, and there is also, it's called the horseshoe stone, I believe, and if you kneel within that, it's said to give you good fortune and good luck. So there's these huge crossovers in Ireland. Actually, one of my friends was telling me, who's Irish, that the Irish people, they're Catholic, but they will say, I'll light a candle for you, and that's believed to give people good luck. And it's still a thing that people do today. And he was like, oh God, I've got the most Irish mother in the world. You know, she says she'll light a candle. I grew up with my mum lighting candles for me because my mum's a spiritualist, but I didn't know that it was a practice among other places. Church candles are incredible. You know, the little church candles that you go to the church, they are incredible for healing work, for rites of protection. Dirt by a church is fantastic for protection work. The holy water, as I said before, the well water, of course, there's that Christo-Pagan crossover. Years before Christianity, people would have gone there to commune with deities, to commune with the gods, with the god that would have resided in that body of water, in that well. There are so many different accounts of cunning folk and charmers. Psalms, you can work and use the psalms. In the Hoodoo tradition, they use psalms, and in that respect, a lot of traditional witchcraft, there, you know, in Cornish witchcraft, you see a lot of people working psalms. Saints are also petitioned. There are old love spells to find out your love, to find out your true love, and it calls upon the power of St. Thomas, and you ask him. Trying to think what else. Okay. So there is so many different elements in folk magic and traditional witchcraft that has this huge crossover. Now, I'm not saying go to the church, get down on your knees, pray to the Lord Almighty, but just know that there is this huge crossover. You know, there's a huge crossover. Oh look, magical waters that people wash themselves down in. You know, there is huge crossover, and if you look at proper old British folk magic, you'll see people calling the Trinity, you'll see everything. And there was one prayer that people used was known as the Paternoster, which is Latin for Our Father. And there would be a white Paternoster and a black Paternoster, and folk magicians would utilise this. So the white Paternoster, and there are a lot of historians that actually link it to older Egyptian prayers, and it basically addresses St. Peter and says, open, open heaven's doors. What hast thou in thou hand, St. Peter? Heaven's door keys. What have you in your other hand? Heaven's book leaves. You know, and it's basically a prayer, a charm to be able to get into heaven when you die. And there are a lot of spells and charms in ancient Egypt that have similar things to that. You know, you do that spell, and when you do that, that means that you will get into a good vision of the afterlife. You know, and it's very, very prominent. The Pendle witches actually have a mix of the white Paternoster and the black Paternoster. The black Paternoster was also turned into a children's nursery rhyme, and you'll probably recognise it. It's Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, bless this bed that I lay on, 4 corners to my bed, 4 angels round my head, 1 to watch, 1 to pray, 2 to bear my soul away. But it was reported there was a couple of old white witches, one from Essex as well, from my ends, that would use the black Paternoster before she went to bed. And the different variations of the Paternosters would be done with different colours of the rosary. So if you was doing the white Paternoster, you would have a white rosary. If you'd done the black Paternoster, you would have a black rosary. There's a documentary called Celtic Monsters, Witches, and it speaks of a lady, a Welsh lady called Mary Bectan Picter. Right, my Welsh is terrible, so this is probably a really bad pronunciation. But she was known to use a charm that every time she wanted something, she would have a ball of wool and she would have some pins and she would have a bowl, a vessel of water. And what she would do, every time she wanted something, she would get a pin, she would put it into the ball of wool, and then she would put it into the vessel of water and she would read a passage out from the Bible that attributed with what she wanted to wish upon someone. And that's her old Welsh witchcraft spell. And she had a snake. She had a snake familiar. Check it out, Celtic Witches, Celtic Monsters, Witches. It comes up. It's awesome. They have fairies, snakes and dragons, all sorts. It's wicked. But yeah, there's not just that. There's Graham King in Troy Books. It was a promotional video for his book, British Spells and Charms. And he talks about how way back when people would have people would make clay images of the specific body part that was ailing someone. So if someone had a bad arm, or if they had a bad leg or a bad back, an image would be made of that, and it would be prayed over, and then it would be taken to the shrine of a saint, and the prayers would be made to that saint to help heal that person's back, to heal that person's arm, to heal that person's leg. There are so many different, Opera, Rotas, Tenet, Sator Square. The Sator Square is a very old Christian password that Christians used way back when. And the words on the charm mean the same thing back to front, and that was used. That was a thing that was used. There are so many different things. Like, I could literally sit and reel things that incorporated Christianity into British folk magic and witchcraft as well. You know, there are charms that included animal parts, but then there would be a Christian prayer, and that would be the spell that would go with it. So you see this huge crossover, this very blurred line, and it was very interesting watching that woman speak, and I will put the link underneath, and it's very, very interesting. So yes, I hope this has helped. I hope this has helped. There is probably a lot more things that I have missed out. There is probably a lot more things that I have missed out. But I wanted to show that there is a huge crossover in folkloric witchcraft, that dual faith aspect of witchcraft, and there exists, it definitely exists, and when you strip things away, when you actually research and you have a look, you see that there is this very blurred line between the two. And there is this dual faith aspect that a lot of people had, and that a lot of people still have. Over and out. Peace, and I hope you like the video.